I'm Alex Stone, former military service member and law enforcement officer. Now CEO of Echelon Protective Services, one of the fastest growing private security firms on the West Coast. And this is Ride Along, where our guest and I witness firsthand the issues affecting our community. I believe our proven method of enacting meaningful change through compassion and understanding is the best way to make our streets a safer place and truly achieve security through community. Hey, Alex Stone here. Welcome to the Ride Along podcast brought to you by OPSEC Media Group. I'm Alex Stone, your formidable host. I have an amazing gentleman in the house today, Joey Lankford. He is not a felon, but he's a farmer with felons. We're going to get all into that later. Joey, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks?
Yeah, my name is Joey Lankford. I am a husband to Courtney, father of 5, and born and raised in Middle Tennessee, except for some time I spent over in South Africa, which we'll probably get into that a little bit later too as well. And
so in the middle of Tennessee, or Middle Tennessee's a town?
It's the middle of Tennessee.
Gotcha.
It's like 15 minutes south of Nashville. Right. So a lot of country music. It's what we're known for, but have just... You know, when you're born somewhere and you live there your entire life, it's sort of home to you. So that's where we...
So side story. We're going to side story at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I come up to visit you. My wife wants to go to the country music museum. They have an entire display, a whole wing, if you will, an education center on Taylor Swift. I was stuck in there for like 3 hours. So, gentlemen, beware if your wife likes Taylor Swift and you're going to Nashville, make sure that you have a very long Zoom meeting scheduled.
Absolutely.
During that day.
She's a local celebrity for sure.
Oh, yeah.
National celebrity now.
Yeah, great. So, Joey, you're up here this week. You're visiting a farm, right?
Yeah.
Why are you visiting a farm? Give us your background. What do you do?
I came into farming out of healthcare in 2010. My wife and I had 3 children biologically, and she came to me and wanted to adopt a baby, and so we adopted a little girl from Ethiopia.
Awesome. Love
and
Ethiopia.
Bristol's 13 now. She was 10 months when we got her, and that trip to Ethiopia, I really remember just picking up Bristol and then coming home, and then Courtney and I's discussions in our early 30s were like, that was really fulfilling, to leverage our lives for something that was way bigger than us, and then to be able to see that come back into our home and the resources that we've been given to really be able to apply those to affecting other issues. Little did we know that 18 months from that time, we would sell everything and move to Cape Town, South Africa.
Wow.
And so...
from Middle Tennessee to South Africa.
To Cape Town, to work in one of the a local ministry there that was set up through one of President George W. Bush's PEPFAR funded or USAID organization. Wow. Yeah. So it was to combat AIDS there in the township. Yeah, USAID. Okay. Exactly, that's what it was. And... we landed right there on the peninsula south of Cape Town, and we got a 3-year volunteer visa initially. We ended up staying 5 years, and upon going there, I ran into a Zimbabwean farmer. Actually had fled Zimbabwe on asylum seeker papers, and he had set up a farm with greenhouses. They call them tunnels there, which confused me, when I first got there. But he had some trouble financially, and he was getting out of that particular business, and so we bought a couple of his greenhouses and relocated them to outside of a township called Masapumalele. And Masapumalele was 45,000 people on 1 square mile. So
for people out there who don't know, townships typically have extreme levels of poverty.
Extreme, and I tell people that, Alex, it's like the purest cross section I've ever seen, but between the wealthiest people in the world. Coexisting with probably the poorest people in the world. It's a real controlled township is just basically a place that has been set aside for all of the socially...
We can call them a reservation.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Essentially,
it's their version.
A reservation system.
Yes. So
that was adopted through apartheid.
Exactly. Yeah. And we lived there 4 or 5 years, and we took it to 13 greenhouses with a tomato growing operation of all things.
Great. I love it, yeah.
And we started that with a market contract for like a local Whole Foods in the area called Food Lovers Market, and we just began to distribute Crown on tomatoes, fresh, unrefrigerated, to the upper income stores in the area where they could be bought. And
so prior to going to South Africa,
no,
you were not a farmer.
I was in healthcare.
Okay.
But you can probably tell just by my accent and from where I'm from. I love being outside. You know, that really.
Not everyone in Tennessee is born a farmer.
No.
Okay.
No.
Good.
Very few actually are born farmers. So, you know, I was born loving the outdoors.
Yeah.
You know, I freaking love this place here because of that. You know, just my limited time here.
The
I'm
Pacific Northwest is amazing.
It is
amazing.
Yeah, I could spend a lot of time here, but so Cape Town was a lot like this as far as geographically. You know, you got the mountains and the valleys and Seal Island and all these just geographic just wonders. Table Mountain was right out our window, so we could see one of the major geographic landmarks for planet Earth. And so we lived and existed there. And then while we were there, my wife got pregnant, so we had another baby there. So took 4, brought back 5. But in 15, 16, early 15, we started sensing that we wanted to, the end goal was to turn it over to those that we had trained, right? Yeah. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to recruit through a documentary film that was done, you know, about our family, and a book that I wrote with Lifeway. I was able to recruit 4 or 5 people that were exiting college with agronomy degrees and accounting degrees and computer science degrees to come to South Africa and help me build that. So once we got ready to leave, I left first, and then that team continued to leave until it's run completely.
So you mentored the team and got them in place.
Yes.
And that was your golden parachute.
That was like
not really golden parachute, but
it was for me. It was like I knew, you know, once I had the opportunities or saw that we had some winds of change within the organization, that they internally had embraced it there in South Africa, you know, and we're ready to move it forward. It was just. I'm an entrepreneur. Amazing. I'm a pioneer. You know, I'm very geared, very entrepreneurial.
The money's earned through this, I guess, social enterprise.
Yes.
Did it go back to the township? How did that?
It was pay for all of the people in the academy. So we set up a full-blown training academy.
You were able to give livable wages and jobs.
Yes.
To the members of this extremely
impoverished township.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and
transformative, really.
Very. And in my own life. You know, it was like an MBA or a doctorate in poverty, just being steeped literally right across the road, living, you know, on a hill across the road in a home that looks much like ours does now, but also looking down on that kind of poverty every day and having to interact with it was so educational for me. When I got ready to come back home, you know, my wife and I had prayed about it. We're faith people. So it's just like, you know, let's just see what we feel like we're supposed to do. I didn't want to go back. I just didn't feel like, you know, I wanted to go back into the corporate world. I just, you know, there's a lot of opportunity, and like I said, I'm a pioneer, and making money is, you know, for me is like that's the fun thing to try to do.
Fun. I love it.
And people like you and I are wired that way. Yep. But you know, we felt really impressed that we wanted to stay in food. So I had built a relationship with the governor of Tennessee at the time. Was Bill Haslam, and when I got back. Had just contacted him through, you know, and we had been in touch before, but begin to ask the question about, you know, is there any underutilized land maybe that we could use to engage the underserved, socially underserved in Nashville with a workforce development program that included all things agric, so like forestry, hospitalities, even, you know, the end user with food and purveying food safety is a big deal. So we trained the food safety certifications. So we started setting up little by little this program 6-7 years ago now. Time flies, you know that. But
and the name is on your hat.
The name is on my hat. It's Cultivate. You know, it's and what was crazy about it is, you know, if somebody would have pointed a gun to my head and said, you know, what are you doing this for? I would have said, you know, I probably to engage the generationally unemployed or underemployed. You know, like just in our cities. So let's say, you know, just trying to find points of maybe relational currency and then go in and try to set up farming education and get people at a place where we get the relationship, right? But I'll never forget when I got my stuff done with the ag department. So Cultivate's Tennessee has the only ag department in the United States with a working farm on it, and that's Cultivate. Yeah, so that was, we didn't even know that.
So out of all 50 states, all departments of agriculture in those states, you're running the only social the private-public farm
Yes.
as a part of the Department of Agriculture.
Yes, in collaboration with the government. And what I mean by collaboration is the educational components and the assets. So the land, the 8 acres that we farm, the buildings that we use, the training kitchens that we use for training, all of those
And
things.
I've toured the facilities. These are nice
Yeah.
facilities. These are nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. We've been really, really fortunate and blessed.
And so, who do you hire?
So I was gonna,
How did
you and I
you-
laughed about this when you were at the farm, but my first encounter was with a dude that chased me down, and his name's Chris Comstock. If you go on the web, you can find his story. But he just literally came to me and said, I got out of 7 years of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I got a wife and I got 2 kids, and I'm working at Chili Burrito, and I've got this ceiling like over me, like I can't, and I pressure wash, and I could
You can't
tell,
get into middle class on minimum wage. You can't do
and
it.
and he was looking at me like, there's my truck, there's my pressure washer. Like I'm not a guy that doesn't want to work. Like I want to work. And I remember seeing, Chris is one of my best friends now. I was like, well, if you want to work, we got a 4-plank fence that we got to start putting up around this farm.
Nice. Yeah.
So we literally,
There's always work on a farm.
and he and I just started getting, and farm work is just, it's relational, right?
It is, yeah.
So we were just out there.
You're relating to the ground, the earth,
And
you're relating to each other.
Yeah, and farming itself neutralizes any hierarchy. I'm just another dude. When you're driving nails
during harvest season,
everyone's harvesting,
got to.
right? If you're milking cows, everyone milks. Like there's no, hey, this dude's sitting over here because he's the boss, right?
Yeah.
It's a very, and I think in a lot of ways, work is probably the greatest relational tool that we have for connecting with one another. Because when you get down to it, and you start really applying your expertise, your back, your whatever to something together, it sort of neutralizes.
Yeah, you have shared mission, vision, values, and goals.
Exactly.
So you're building team.
Exactly.
In the middle of all that, which is relational, right?
Yeah, and I got to know Chris, and then so let's fast forward a bit. It started growing a bunch of food, and we give our food away. You've seen the model, but it's basically we sell half of it and we give half of it away. And it's
storehouses of food, food upon food upon food, rooms of food.
Yes. We're now
amazing.
We're now up to 300,000 pounds a year of all fresh produce that's going to acute hunger in Nashville.
What percentage of your workforce would you say are people coming out of prison?
Every person.
Every single person.
Out of prison or out of an acute addiction of some sort that they're dealing with through a halfway house. They have a residence and they have to have transportation. So those are 2 components of our program that we don't provide. And if you see some of our merch, or even in my name, that letter 2 is a tagline for growing food, growing people. So missionally, we're growing food for the acute hunger, the food deserts in and around Nashville, which we have a lot of gaps in just inequality there.
Yeah.
But then also
about
using
how is it possible that major cities can have economic zones experiencing food scarcity? How is it? Where in the supply chain or in the economics of that can that occur?
I think it occurs if you look at just what I've seen since I've been back from Africa happening in my own hometown. I think it occurs because these cities are growing. These communities they're really moving people around. Just like you said, we call it reservations or townships.
It's
but basically, it's a money game.
You're constantly redeveloping.
Exactly. Improvising, improving, rezoning.
Gentrifying.
Yes. And it's just, it's displacing. And finally you get them,
over time, there are people that, as this displacement occurs of wealth, and wealth is moving the money and the capital around, people lose housing. Right, they're
forced.
losing. Yeah,
they lose it.
They do.
I mean, they're the lowest bidder in the game of
they're at the bottom of a
because
stack.
they can't bid the land. They can't build the development crisis that exists in some of these cities with just the pure need for ground and for parking and for this, and then once they've been there since the 60s and 70s or 80s, or whatever, and then. Basically, in the folks that have become my best friends, the ones that we've been able to bless through Cultivate, it's that once they get out, they can't pay enough to live. They don't make enough to live in a place that and it's
you can't get to middle class on.
It's like
wage.
every time they turn around, they're getting punched in the face again, and it's when you build the relational currency with these individuals, you begin to be I'll tell you this, I've become way more empathetic myself to the plights of those who have been in prison or who have been addicted horrifically to something because of a trauma in their life or whatever. You know, I told my wife even the other day, I said, you know, it's still amazing to me that we've been doing this for 13 years and I'm still so full of judgment sometimes. You know, it's just like I look at situations and I'm like, well, you know, but then you walk a mile. You ever heard like walk a mile in somebody's shoes? Yeah. When you sit down with an individual and you hear how they got into 10 years of prison or whatever, you're like, I mean, I would have been the same place.
Yeah, well, you tell someone, hey, I really need you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And get this done. And they're like, yeah, I've been addicted to heroin for 7 years.
I don't even know what that means.
What does that look like for that person to re-engage, right? And to normalize and to socialize.
Yeah.
It is a big process. And I deal with that a lot in the work we do.
Sure.
And I think that I parallel your levels of judgment sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Because I grew up in foster care. I grew up on the street. I grew up homeless. I grew up, you know, having to go to school and fight every day, literally get into physical fights. Right. And, you know, people are always, I think people just assume that everyone has the same level of IQ and emotional and EQ and that, you know, all things being equal, well, you should just be able to make your life better. Right. But some people don't even have the acumen to be able to plan their lives beyond 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, without the community. Without
a team.
Whatever that community is, without a team. Just like you build your business, just like we've built this nonprofit. You know, you got to prioritize your team. You got to have a strategy. They have nobody
they don't know how to do that. They've never been taught to prioritize and to create strategy. They've never been taught that.
Right. Just stay sober one more day. You know, that's the biggest thing on the radar.
That's their goal.
It's like, and it's literally gripping every ounce of energy that they have. Or, you know, and I think your question, I think that got us down this rabbit hole was like, why am I here? You know, we had the privilege of being contacted by a farm that's here that has some really ambitious goals, and I love ambitious goals. If you're coming to me and you want to do a raised bed, I'll help you. I'll even help you pay for it. But when you come to me and you've got like big vision for how to truly equip individuals to help a broad swath of our underserved, whatever that missional alignment is, it's got me. I just had the opportunity to meet you as well as some of your team and hear some of the heartbeat behind this farm that's going on here in this area. And I was like, they told you that day at the table, hey, if you ever want me to just come kick it around, you know, like just the ideals of things that I've learned or things that I've been through that maybe I can see, okay, this is the arrangement that helped us get past that, or this is the corporate nonprofit kind of relationship currency that I think develops that's healthy, you know, we've been doing it 13 years. So it's like awesome. Internationally and domestically. And so there's just, and just broadening our community, the Cultivate community with arm in arm kind of networking with other nonprofits that are doing things and doing them well and learning, and who knows where this is going to go, but I know that it's growing.
It is. It's becoming more popular.
Very, very popular. I think food became a real, let's say, you know, for those that never had food issues, right? Yeah. COVID maybe had brought some awareness, if you will, to people who are like, well, maybe the disruption of a supply line or this or that could make this a need in our local communities. And so, you know, Food Future, also the need for me is like, I mean, if there's an opportunity, which I think there is, for and we have some chronically unemployed folks from whatever their social issue is that we can employ to meet a need and put a face back on that that agricultural kind of population that we know everywhere at every level is being talked about, right? Oh, yeah. And so then it's up to you and I creatively as people bent like us to like really
do crazy things,
to do crazy things, to start sitting around and like doing what we're doing right here. You know, just talking about building relationship and just talking about, you know, how can we leverage each other's experiences and resources to make this, a better place, both in Nashville and right here as well.
So a lot of the folks that watch this, they'll know that we kind of had to start a nonprofit because as a security company, we didn't feel fully empowered to be able to hang around for hours and get someone into a shelter. We have active calls. I mean, this is a
I
major
can't
city.
believe. Okay, so I've been here for like 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to some of your staff earlier, and I was like, I cannot believe that me as a general public person I don't understand the police are one thing, but like the security officers that are before police a lot of times, what their equipping has to be, and sort of this next level of thinking about socially what's going on in the minds of people as they interact.
Dealing with mental health
so
issues.
cool to get an education this morning. With some of your team and stuff.
And we're gonna
it's gonna be fun too. I look forward to that. But
so we determined we needed a nonprofit.
Yeah.
That nonprofit, last month we transitioned 187 people that were currently living on the streets into sheltering, detox, or housing.
Unreal.
And that's about the average now, where we're averaging around 170 to 190 a month. And only 3 people were on the street doing this. 3 people, that's it. And we realized one day that, we have about 1% of the population of Portland is chronically homeless. So one out of 100 people are experiencing homelessness for more than 3 or 4 months at a time. Every year.
Right.
And we realized that our goals are not big enough.
Yeah, sure.
If we're gonna
that surprises me with you.
I know. We need bigger goals.
For sure.
I tell my team that all the time. Something we noticed was that in the past 10 years, the population of female to male has increased from what used to be really almost 7 to 9%. To almost 20 to 25%.
Wow.
On the streets of Portland. And
wow.
So with this, there's been a higher increase of sexual exploitation.
Trafficking.
Yep. And so we decided as a team, as a board of the nonprofit, that we wanted to do something about that.
Yeah, sure.
And so,
awesome.
We found 426 acres. That's a farm.
That is a farm.
That's a huge.
That's farm. A farm, yeah.
And we want to turn that into a farm that is employing, and put a shelter there as well.
Sure.
That employs women that have experienced being commercially and sexually exploited.
I mean,
and so I'm leaning on you to make this happen.
Yeah. Well, you've got definitely whatever we can shake out of there, but we got. One of the things that I think you and I were talking about earlier was about the need to, especially with some of the, even with the men and women that I work with coming out of prisons, like you got to get them out of the place where all of their vices exist, right?
There's too many triggers.
There's every
all
time
their friends, they walk down the street, someone's shooting heroin
right. And we see, with most of the relapse that we have within our own curriculum and courses that, they're literally 8 to 4 at the farm, right?
Yeah.
But then they go home and they try to get inside their apartment and shut the curtain as quickly as possible so they can't see
the person's in the stairwell, overdosing in the stairwell.
Exactly.
Right? They see the needle
and there's no life in that, it's like, and your heart just breaks because it's just the
enemy is at the
prison
doorstep.
Without bars.
Yeah.
But it's still prison. It's like
when temptation is your greatest enemy,
it's staring,
and it's outside your door, staring you down, waiting for you.
No way to get it.
Right, it's behind the door, crouching, waiting for you. Right, and that comes from the Torah and
Absolutely.
Genesis. Right.
Yep.
And when it's waiting for you outside your door every day, ready to pounce, you really need to decide where you live. You have to change your location. Location makes a huge difference.
I think it's probably one of the greatest conversational pieces as we move progressively forward. People doing what we do and thinking about, food, but then housing. I mean, where somebody and who they live alongside as they continue their journey, whatever it looks like in sobriety or in just healing. Let's just call it healing from whatever. Their place of rest and respite, and we have to consider that just throwing food at them or throwing transportation at them or whatever, it's not ever good enough. It's like we gotta understand the broader issues with their needs and their existence, and I mean most need a new community. I mean, they burnt every relationship they had familially. Usually, the ones that
typically people that have gone to prison and experienced long-term addiction they've really burnt some bridges.
Yeah, they've drained all their relationships, and so, I think getting them to a safe place where relationships can maybe be reestablished,
or just
mentors or coaches or friends or people, just because
a reality again.
Reality,
that they can actually have relationships again.
Sure. Yeah. Provide a place of invitation for that to happen. That's really all we're doing, and that's what just fired me up when I heard your vision about not just the size of the farm. You could, tons and tons of food, but probably the ability to get a real place of peace and serenity for these ladies to start healing, and the people that
beautiful location.
I can't wait, to see it and get my hands there. And
we're gonna go out there today, but we're gonna first hit the streets.
Yeah.
So I want you to draw some parallels for me. I mean, obviously you've been working with the houseless population in Nashville, right?
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of people who have been to prison and experienced drug addiction have lived on the streets.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would say 90%.
Most of them, at some point.
I mean, if you're living in jail, that's not really a home.
Right.
So you're kind of homeless, even if you're.
That's right.
So tell me your experiences with working with the homeless and how you're providing food in that scarcity areas, those economic zones.
Yes. So to really reach the homeless, we found missionally that if we partnered with people that did that really well, so like end user prep for food, so whether it be 3,000 meals a day or a food truck that shows up where they can get nutritionally diverse food that way they normally might not otherwise get.
Rather than a stolen Twinkie.
Yeah, right. Yep. Exactly. Like trying to introduce food that doesn't look foreign to most of us. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, stuff like that, green beans, things that are processed, got a little bit of shelf life, that kind of thing. So we realized if we could package, certify it food safe, and get it to the right folks that literally use their platforms to find and locate the most chronically underserved. So that's how we logistically move 300,000 pounds of food around a year. We're going to go to 500,000 pounds next year.
That's amazing.
And then by 2027, our goal is to be graduating 50 people into employment a year and creating 1 million pounds worth of fresh produce into our local food economy every year.
That's amazing. So so through a 1-year mentorship program, transitioning 50 persons who are likely coming in out of the prison system,
all coming out of prisoner addiction,
into a viable job where they're making more than minimum wage.
Yes.
They can be in middle class.
Yes.
Have a safe and secure job.
Yes.
While at the same time providing 1 million pounds of food.
Yep, to the food conversation in around Nashville. Like, politically even, like, I don't like, the political game is one you never know where you're how you're measuring or where you're getting, but 1 million pounds of food is a big discussion point. It's a huge deal, like, and to be able to say, hey, we're actually certifying food safe, creating nutritional diversity in these communities, and delivering this amount of food every year. You're really, I think, at the ground level making an impact. It's like that's a huge impact. And you and I have talked about, like, looking at modeling certain aspects of training, or like what is it that food allows us to do economically within nonprofits like ourselves to really give them value. I mean, I don't need the value from growing all that food, but I got a lot of friends that take a lot of pride in providing that food for the community. And previously they were criminals, and now they're the farmers markets, local farmer. Yeah. You just talk about the confidence that gives an individual when kids are running up.
And now they're responsible for putting food on the table of people.
And people, they say, that's my farmer. That's awesome. And these, they never had anybody, give them that kind of street cred in affluent neighborhoods with farmers markets or whatever.
I went to your farmers market.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was nice. And there were affluent people showing up.
Yeah, and they treat them like they're their neighbors, man.
Yeah, and you're just 30 meters away spinning honey from your
absolutely.
Aprons. It's great.
It's the bee and the honey stuff, that's what was a revenue stream that we created. We did, I think our largest, which is crazy. We started 2 years ago, we started a women's version of so it was
Nice.
primarily men, and then we started, and that wasn't. It was because I needed a woman to come alongside that could help with that part of it, and so we grew our leadership team. Had a few that was really felt called to really press into the addiction side of what women face, sort of some of the issues that you're dealing with here, and what was really cool is that through that we got into cut flowers. Right, so they come up with a business model, which they all have to do before they graduate. They got to present a model for a micro enterprise business.
I love that.
And we created a retail store, which you've been in the retail store, but so we sell all of their cut flower arrangements, honey, pork. We've got graduates that are now in beef and chickens and that kind of thing. So we provide an outlet, if you will, for we're an anchor customer basically. So they know they're going to get $800 worth of sales a month from me, or whatever their model said, and so we just fulfill that, and it's become a destination place for people in Nashville that want the best high quality stuff. But the cut flowers that they do, we did a subscription service this year with a partner organization. Wow. So like, if you got a Tractor Supply or a REI or something, you can go in there and their customers are coming there anyway, right? So we just signed them up on subscriptions, and they get this bouquet of beautiful flowers to take home with them for the weekend or whatever.
That's
and
great.
It was phenomenal.
My wife wants me to be on that
we'll chat about those kind of
for sure.
little learning curves
That's great,
that I went through, because it was like,
cut flowers.
Yeah, it's something I'm definitely going to grow larger, larger quantities of, maybe broaden the platform, get a little bit more land for that, because it's just finding where, we talked about it earlier, finding out where economies are with this, and putting a narrative, a story to it, restoration, healing, whatever that is, so that the consumer's getting high quality products, the highest in anywhere. They, and they're also spending their money knowing that for every dollar they spend on the stuff that's coming off of these farms, it's going back into, food insecurity or whatever it might be. And so I just think there's a real place in the heart of an American to know that, it's okay to want to eat nutritionally, really good nutritional food. It's okay to want to buy that locally, but what makes it even better is when you can do both of those things and know that for every pound of food you buy from Cultivate, we're giving the same pound of food away to somebody in need.
That's amazing.
And so, you're going home eating good with, educational recipes in the box, all these other things that we're given, but somebody else who didn't have the same opportunity or grow up walking in your shoes is getting that same exact box of food.
That's amazing.
And so
they must love you in Nashville for sure. I found out it was a former city council member that told me about you.
Yeah, that's what you told me. And
he's up here now, working up here in a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going down, if you're going to go check out this nonprofit, you're going to be really impressed with Cultivate.
Yeah, I'm glad he did that, man. I'm glad we met.
We're 1,000, 1,500 miles away.
Yeah, it's crazy.
People are talking about you.
It's crazy. Well, I really appreciate the fact that council members and people have been involved enough to really give us support. It's not like they're just, but they've created a friendly environment, let's say, for something like you saw to grow in Nashville with a lot of different moving parts, and it's been really fun for me to be able to watch as it's come together, and to be able to watch as the lay leaders who have graduated previously in our course are now leading. So I'm sitting here talking to you, but the farm still has to run, right? Yeah. So previously graduated people are now running site farms for us. We're up to 4 farms, and
so what's the future, Joey? Where are you headed? Where are you going? Where are you going to be in 10 years?
All right. So what I think is modeling is very, very high priority for me. So if you got, like, let's say 5 or 6 site farms that are doing, $200,000 a piece, so you're meeting your $1 million goal, whatever, and then I, like you, align in the space where, like, the one key piece that I think is missing in our organization right now is the housing piece in a bigger farm. So like there's so many agritourism kind of revenue streams that from event venues to U-Picks to
we're hoping to have
orchards
and an event.
And so I think we're gonna to your buy a farm like you guys have done, and a larger tract of land, maybe put some key person housing on that piece of property so that you can have facilitators that have lived in those situations and graduated through the program who know the steps, and then really crank out some deeper educational kind of things. Maybe, I love the value add with farming and going into whether it be, processed or freeze dried or spice mixes or tea mixes or, there's such high value products that you can come up with on a piece of land that you can then put in a retail environment for customers.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
that's what you and I are always talking about,
you got to get that supermarket contract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or supermarket. People always ask me,
I have a friend, I'm not going to mention them on this podcast by name, and they're coming on the podcast, but this individual owns a supplement line, an energy drink line.
Yeah.
Very popular, and just watching the growth of that and the ability to get contracts in multiple regions across America.
Yeah,
that's where it's at.
Yeah,
and that's where you have to be for sure.
Yeah, and I think the collaboration, building a broader network of because I think future for me is creating the brand recognition, obviously, but also, I'm not so consumed by that as I would be like an umbrella of people around the country, let's say in different places, who are spearheading foot forward approaches to dealing with the issues that you and I are talking about. And I think that historically it's been left up to people in churches and whatever, but it's trending to be people who are entrepreneurial, educational, who are being called out to do these kind of things, right?
This kind of social enterprise.
Yeah, right? Social enterprise, just a different, different way
of doing business.
Different, very different, but I think it's very. We might be 5 or 10 years ahead of the spear, right? But we're on the tip of the spear for social reinvestment and for the way that
it's needed now. We're definitely ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
It's needed now. Just looking at the labor market as a security company in 5 states, right? It's a hard market.
It is.
But if you can transform, if you can take people out of prison, do a 12-month program and then get those 50 people in real jobs.
Yep.
I mean, who has that type of track record?
It's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. We
and that's what we need. We need more. If we had that in every state, that would be 2,500 felons coming out of prison a year. And within 1 year, they have a job where they're making middle class wages
and paying taxes, and contributing to
buying a
house, and contributing to the overall think tank, whatever you want to call it, of continuing the conversation of how we better, because it's not. I mean, recidivism and it's one of those things
70-80%.
It's
you got to break the cycle.
Crazy, across nationally. But I agree with you. It's like just investing in the ones who can join us in the discussions about the plight of whatever it is they face, and then using that alongside of them to become better at what we do, 1 inch at a time. I think for us, it's that buying a larger piece of farm, doing sort of what you're doing up here, and creating some additional revenue streams for micro enterprise, for individuals to be able to to do. And then securing, like you said, a broader network of sales distribution points for them under an umbrella of people who are watching their interest and maybe protecting.
Joey, we need to own regional farms all across America with regional contracts.
For sure.
That's what we needed.
Yeah, and we
need bigger goals.
Like I lay in bed, a lot like you. We don't get a lot of sleep. But it's.
I don't know how many times my wife has told me, "Are you coming to bed?"
Let me think. Yeah. Let me think through this one more.
I got to finish this thought. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's fun
So
and it's fun for us, challenging to our spouses. But you got to meet Courtney this morning, and that was one of my main. I was really hoping that would happen because, there's a lot of energy here, but it takes a lot of behind the scenes work to get it done. And
back end administration.
Oh my gosh! So Courtney's that for me, and I know your wife does that for you. So.
Oh yeah, in fact, I had to steal my wife from her law firm.
Yeah.
To bring her in to help run some of the back end admin stuff, and she's still not
good.
She's still not happy about that, but
it's so good.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
So Joey, thanks for coming in today.
Absolutely, it's been my pleasure, Alex.
I think that we could talk for hours.
We could.
But I would prefer to do a little bit more of that on the street.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Yeah, I would like to contact a couple people, see what's going on, and then connect with Bach, who is phenomenal. He pretty much runs Portland.
Sure.
But he always keeps one foot on the street because he's a real OG.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I think we follow him around and we throw some questions at him.
Okay.
About food.
Yeah.
And food security.
Yeah, sure.
Because we give out food on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We carry it around with us.
Absolutely.
And it's not always the healthiest food.
Right.
Because you want to give people food that will last a long time.
Sure.
They don't have refrigeration.
That's right.
And so how do we?
Shelf life is important.
Yeah.
But I've just been here 36 hours, but I've driven through a lot of the city just intentionally to try to get my head around like what and there's a lot of space around here where people could
a lot.
with a lot of creative and forward leaning approaches to getting food because for me some of the community gardens that we fund every year through Cultivate are probably as significant. So we'll give scholarships.
You're also doing gardens inside the city and inner city.
Yeah, I'll scholarship $2,500. So you apply online, and then we will scholarship you $2,500. And then one of our graduate students who's come out of prison and whatever, they get to phase 3, they have to go out and do a site plan with you and then install it. Wow. So that's their give back to the community, and that's very transformative in itself. Wow. Yeah, and we see the switch just flip when they get to become givers and not takers of their community for the first time ever. And it is. So I think those conversations as you and I progress with how do you invest in maybe key or champion people like Bach or whatever, to figure out, okay, we definitely don't have the answers, but we're listening maybe, for the first time to figure, we don't want to run in here and do something that your community just doesn't, but if there is a place for it, we would like to invest in that and help
for sure.
You know what I mean? So
100%,
that's why that's why
you're here.
That's why I'm here is just because my heartbeat is for solutions that work, man. Like, let's quit throwing so much stuff at the wall.
It's amazing how solutions can turn into money, and then money goes into budgets, and then somewhere along the way, you don't really see the results. No. Right? But when you're tracking it, when it's more organic, it's small, it's a smaller microcosm, you can track the results and really see it. You can see it for yourself.
Yeah, and those successes, if you will, those stories, the narratives that come out of the work we do become what you are, become love one another, or become Cultivate, or become, these different wonderful nonprofits that I get to see. It's the people that we're just obedient and relationally trying to walk with, connect with, whatever, like you're doing through today that we'll be doing. But it's been a pleasure, dude. I mean, I've never been to the Pacific Northwest. You told me I'd love it, and
it's amazing,
dude. I definitely will be back. Often.
Have you gotten to see any elk yet?
I saw a whole herd of them laying in the median.
Amazing, right?
It was. I even got out of my car and
I'm from Texas, so
walked up to them like they were laying out in the median, like at a roundabout here.
Probably 100 of them.
Yeah, there was a lot, big bulls, cows, the whole nine, And my wife's like, I said, no, we're pulling over, and I'm walking up to get a picture of this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it was really cool.
They're in rut, they're right
they're in
there,
it now.
So you gotta be careful.
Yeah. But I stayed close enough to the car where I thought if he got up and acted like he was wanting me to leave, I could cut out pretty quick. So thanks for the invite, man.
Always, Joe. Yeah, and I think that we'll see more of you.
Sure.
We're definitely gonna see more of Joey on the street. We're gonna hit the street right now.
Yeah.
We're gonna hook up with Bach. And we're going to go on patrol. We're going to go on the ride along.
Never done that before, so that's the first. That's a new. I'm excited, man. I told your team this morning. I was looking forward to this.
I tell people all the time, I never invite anyone on this show that just wants to sit at a desk in an office.
That's not me.
Because we like to get the work done on the streets. Exactly.
You see my hands.
That's right.
So I believe that one thing that separates Cultivate and what you're doing from other, let's say, just people that are out trying to do this kind of stuff is that I'm a firm believer in frontline, just the leader has to know what's going on.
100%.
The leader has to know. It doesn't mean I have to do all the farming, because it wouldn't be getting done today, but it does mean that I need to be out there with those men on the farm. You got to know what's going on. So,
Joey, before we hit the streets, tell people where they can find you, where they can find Cultivate.
Yeah, so
your social media, your everything.
Yeah, so it's Cultivate, CUL2VATE.org. So that's the website. You can get information about what we're doing there. You also can go to Cultivate, spelled with the 2 again, Farms, Instagram, Facebook, all your LinkedIn, all your social sites, and then you can follow content that way as well. And so, and I always end by saying, if you've heard something that Alex and I have talked about, and you're ever in Middle Tennessee, and want to come meet the team that you've heard me talk about that now run the farm, just feel welcome to reach out to us. And
or if you have a loved one who's transitioning out of prison,
absolutely,
and you want to put them in a good work program,
absolutely.
Applications,
everything's online. So it's been a pleasure, and it's like you said, this will keep growing organically, and I look forward to get out on the road with you.
All right, well, we're gonna go hit the streets.
Yep,
we'll see you out there.
See you.